Welcome back to the Gun Collective Podcast. My name is Jon Patton. Guys, we've got an amazing guest this week. You are going to be very, very excited about it. But first, go to blackoutcoffee.com/TGC and use the code TGC. Get yourself a little bit of a discount. Try our Tenacity blend. It's really, really good. And if you don't like that, try their teas and hot cocos as well. And then if you want to get yourself some EDC bag goodness, maybe a little bit of apparel, something like that, go to vertex.com and use the code TGC. Get yourself at least 15% off. It all helps keep the lights on. It's all very, very helpful. Now, I actually have a freaking rock star on the TGC podcast, guys. I've got my buddy Sean Danielsen from a band that you would know called Smile Empty Soul. And I absolutely love the latest album. And it turns out, he's a gun guy too. We're going to talk to him for a little bit. Sean, how are you, bro?
I'm good, man. How are you doing?
I'm freaking outstanding. I'm pumped that we actually have the opportunity to do this.
Yeah.
You know, it's not every day that you are available. I mean, you are touring the U.S. constant. Are you currently like on a break from tour?
Yeah, we're in a short like month something little home stretch, and then I leave in about 3 weeks for another run. So.
Oh my God! So like on a normal run, how many cities are you doing?
Usually, it's 20, 25-ish.
Man, that sounds like a grind. Is it?
It can definitely be a grind, especially I do all the driving. So I own the RV that we tour in, and prefer the responsibility of that, for myself.
Yeah.
To drive. And so like the last tour we just did, it was about a month long. It was like around 25 shows, and I did about 8,000 miles.
Oh,
So driving 8,000 miles just yourself in that 1 month on top of playing 25 shows, it can be a grind. By the time you get home, you're ready to be down.
so you also, instead of having like this crazy massive crew, you keep it really simple. It's pretty much you and a drummer and maybe one guy helping. Is that right?
Yep. Yeah. It's me, my drummer Ty, and then my tour manager Fonzo, that is like a tour manager / road crew guy. We also have a very slim down setup when it comes to gear. So,
Okay.
I play I think I've explained to you how I play the guitar and the bass actually.
Yeah. So people are going to want to know how the hell that's possible. So can you try to explain how you play two at once?
Yeah. So I'm running a guitar rig and a bass rig at the same time. And I have a special pickup in the neck of my guitar that is essentially like a bass simulator pickup. And what it does is it isolates the lowest note of the chord that I strike, and then drops it down an octave. And so I have the regular guitar pickup and then this bass pickup in my guitar, basically on their own lines, running out of my guitar down to a pedal board, where the bass goes one way, the guitar comes out another, and then I can control them individually as far as muting and unmuting and throwing effects on them from there. And then they go to the amps, right? The bass amp and the guitar amp. But
and you also are singing at the same time.
that's true. Yeah. But it's one of those things though that like you rehearse it enough and you create the muscle memory, and it kind of, a certain amount of of what you're doing becomes like a choreographed thing in your head that you don't have to consciously worry about necessarily. So
I mean, I as a drummer, I've never toured. I've played in plenty of bands doing local stuff. I played for a while, and I cannot imagine looping in another task on top of playing one instrument. I can't fathom how difficult that would be. You probably have to break your brain a little bit to get all of those things to work at the same time and get through, how many years have you been, you blew up when? What year was that?
2003 was was the year that our first album came out, and the first single on that first album was our biggest song. So that was when we launched and had our greatest successes back then. So it was 20 years ago in May.
So actually 20 years.
Yep.
And you got to remember all the songs from 20 years, because I'm sure everybody wants to hear Bottom of a Bottle. Everybody wants to hear it.
Yeah, there are those songs that we just play every night, no matter what, that we just remember like the back of our hands. But then there are songs that, from various albums over the years that kind of fall through the cracks. They aren't the funnest to play live necessarily, so we don't play them. And then we actually don't practice as a band. We just don't practice at all. So
So
there's no.
your practice is when you're on tour, essentially.
Yeah, we because it's just Ty and I, and we're pretty tight together. We've already locked in that chemistry. We'll set up load in for the first show of a tour about an hour early to give ourselves an extra hour, and we'll run like any songs that he wants to run, and then maybe a song or two that I want to run personally at sound check, and then we just kind of jump in that night.
Wow.
But
So
because of that setup, there are songs that definitely, if you told me to play it right now, it would be as if I'm just an outsider trying to like refigure out the song. So I just don't.
there's no tabs. I don't understand.
Yeah, I don't have them all just sitting right there. Like one band that I have always admired, one of my favorite bands that we played with a whole bunch of times too, is Clutch, and
Love them. Love them.
they have this catalog of just 3 decades, whatever it is, of just countless albums. And it's crazy because I've seen them back to back even, and they didn't repeat a song. And I feel like they're one of those bands that just has all their songs just kind of like brewing up there at all times. They could just pull them out of their ass and just play them, and that's admirable. We can't do that. We have to. I'll come up with a set list of songs before the tour, send it to Ty. He'll rehearse those songs. I'll rehearse those songs, and we'll go out on tour. We'll have a couple extras ready in case we got to play a little longer for whatever reason. But we don't just have every song just ready to go.
I mean, people have talked to me, this is my way to relate. People have talked to me about things that I've said in a video, 3 and 4 years ago. And I'm like, wait, what did I say? What was
Right.
that?
Right.
Like, I cannot even fathom trying to recall an entire song. What was it like in 2003? You were a lot younger, 20 years younger, in fact. What was it like sort of blowing up in that era? You had a very, very big single, very successful first album. What was that like?
It was super surreal, and I was young, and it was super quick. We
What do you mean by that? What do you mean by super quick?
It just we went from a complete unknown to being very known really, really quickly. We were fortunate enough to get a really good record deal. When the way that our whole thing came together was a producer signed us to a production deal, and then we went in the studio and made that first record with this producer not having a record deal, and then he went and shopped that record around to all the major labels at the time. And we were fortunate enough to actually get a ton of interest. Like we had one of those bidding wars occurring where every label wanted to sign it. So it was just, we got to sit back and see what each label would throw on the table and take the best deal. So we got a really good deal. And usually when you get a good deal, they're investing so much money, they're going to find a way to make their money back. Right. I mean, that's essentially what it's all about. So, our first single came out, and they pushed it hard from the gate on, alternative radio, rock radio, MTV, MTV2, and Fuse, And, within just a matter of a few months, we went from no one knowing who we were to playing, big sold out shows and big festivals and being all over the radio and stuff. So it was super surreal and weird. And I was probably partying way too hard. And it was, at this point, it feels like a different lifetime because it was so long ago. But
Sure.
it was definitely more heaved on my shoulders than I could handle at the time.
I mean, how old were you at the time?
21.
21 years old, and essentially rocketed into fame, and you're expected to be able to handle that. Like, I don't see any 21-year-old being able to handle that thrust into the limelight, so to speak.
Yeah, no, it wasn't what was best for me as a person, but it was what I thought I wanted.
So, would you change anything about how it happened?
I mean, I would change things about my behavior. I would change things about what I did.
What,
But
like doing mountains of coke or something? Like,
yeah, those kinds of things. There's way too much drinking and drugging and being irresponsible in just about every way, including with my career. And but at the end of the day, the way that it all kind of settled at the bottom, I'm very happy with the career that we have, because I mean we're very much on the underground side of things, but we have that like solid fan base that those days helped us build. And we're very much in control of it all. We get to do everything on our terms,
right?
in the ways that we want to do them, and we aren't answering to some management team or some record company that is going to get mad at something we say in an interview and then threaten to pull all of our funding or stop pushing us, or
So,
we
are
just.
you completely independent at this point?
Oh yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I'm our manager and I'm our record label, and it's been that way for um, I mean almost a decade. So
Wow. So, what was it? Just like disagreements with record labels that got you there? Is that the idea?
yeah, I mean, we just we had that first situation with Lava Atlantic, and obviously they pushed us hard and did well for us on the first record. But then um, after our first record, the owner of Lava, who was the guy that signed us, he got pushed out.
Mm,
And
your
so we.
advocate is gone at that point.
Absolutely. And with the way that the egos kind of work in that side of the industry, the record business side of it, you know, when you're the band that was signed by the guy that just got pushed out the door, you're not a priority anymore. If the new guy comes in and keeps your success high, there's no ego boost for him to claim that
Right.
you were successful because of him, because you're already successful and you're the other guys signing.
So you're
So
just baggage at that point.
you're like a redheaded stepchild. And
That
and
sucks.
and so things fell apart for us quickly um, once that happened over there. And then you know we ended up going to an indie label that had some pretty decent success for an indie label, thinking that they could push us on the same level, or hoping that they could push us on the same level as Lava Atlantic, and they couldn't and didn't. And we bounced around, between several different scenarios. One scenario, actually, in 2012, we signed with E1, which is E1 Koch. They're one of the biggest independent record companies and filmmakers in the world. So they
Okay,
might as
wow.
well be a major. Um, we thought we were going to get a great push from them, but they actually did nothing for us, like absolutely
Mm,
nothing. They just flopped the record out. I've put out records completely on my own since then, with zero budget, and done better than they did with the record that they had of ours.
yikes.
So after so many years and so many different record deals, we just decided at one point that we'd be more successful, um, just catering to our fan base, not worrying about, you know, trying to be back on the radio, trying to be gaining ground here or there, just being happy with what we have, and navigating that in an intelligent way, you know.
Do you think that the sort of era of content creators being independent contractors, so to speak, has helped in any way with you going fully independent? I mean, you were arguably happening like you going independent was happening around the same time when content creation was in its infancy and started to grow. Do you feel like people look at you any differently because you're independent now, and that's looked at differently as a whole?
I mean, I don't think that fan level people look at that kind of stuff.
That's fair. Okay.
I don't think that fans look at it any differently. I think they just look at, okay, this, you know, this is that band. I like
Yeah,
them.
what's the latest from them, that sort of
Yeah,
thing.
what's the new record sound like? I like it. Okay, cool. But the way that you get looked at differently is from inside the industry, by other
Mm,
bands, by other by industry people, right? They assume that you are striving and willing to sacrifice everything to be on like the biggest best label at any point in time, regardless of how badly you've been screwed, and how poorly the scenarios have gone for you in the past. So I feel like when we aren't um successful on the radio, and in these competitive scenarios that record companies would put you in with other bands, you know, we kind of aren't looked at by other bands in the industry, and label people as being a band that's still in the industry, right? We're kind of outside of it, which I just don't care about. That's just not, it just doesn't matter to me. It's this is my business and my passion at the same time. If I can make enough running this business and doing it exactly the way I want to do it, that's the best scenario for me.
I mean, that sounds like the dream, right? That's what everybody's striving for, is that level of combining life and your passion, right? And your career, right?
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you on that for sure. It's definitely be, because of how I do this, you know, at this point in time, it's a lot of extra work on me. Um,
Sure, I
you know, as
understand
I
that.
said, I'm the driver, I'm the manager, I'm the record company, I'm the merch guy at the merch table. Um, there's a lot of moments that aren't glorious necessarily, so it might not be what people would picture, but I'm I'm great with it. You know, I love where things are at, and to me, I value the control over my career way more than having a bus driver and having a merch person handle that for me, and some of those perks. You know,
Sure, sure. And speaking of where things are at, the latest album, if I'm not mistaken, is called Black Pilled. Is that correct?
that's the latest full length that we put out. We put
Okay.
that out in 2021. 2021. And
Oh yeah. Okay. So 2021, you put out Black Pilled. Has there been new recordings since then?
yeah, yeah, we released an EP last year.
Okay, I got to download that one. Then I totally didn't know that was a new one.
Yep, yeah, and well, we've been releasing material so quickly and regularly that it is kind of hard to keep up. But last year in October, we released an EP called "The Loss of Everything," which was 6 songs, actually 5 songs on the digital release, 6 on the physical CD release, and yeah, we've been actually releasing a lot of EPs. Um, in these modern times, because full length albums, there's kind of, it's a lot of work and a lot of money invested in only one big bang of a release,
Sure.
and so you can, in this day and age, you can get a lot further for less money, less effort, you know, with a smaller batch of songs, which is why you're seeing so many artists go to releasing only EPs or singles at a time and not the traditional album format.
Well, now, a lot of albums, and I think this happened a lot in the 90s and 2000s when you'd go buy an album and there was like three or four throwaway songs that just got shoved on the album
Yeah.
from, any level of band, whether it's a local all the way up to, top level. Uh, I can't remember an album that there was probably like three or four that I would pick up and just listen to the entire way through and
Yeah.
love every song. It's just not a thing. So cutting that down and tailoring it into an EP where you're like happy with every single song that's pretty interesting.
Yep. Yep. And then, it also costs you a lot less in the studio, recording, mixing, mastering. The entire process, becomes shorter and less expensive. And then you still get the internet bang out of the release of the whole thing that you're going for.
I see. I see. So what is I picked up on the vibe. I listened to Black Pill quite a bit when you and I connected initially, and the vibe I got from that record is kind of like you walking around with a middle finger held out to not necessarily all authority, but it's pretty damn close. Uh,
Right.
so sort of, it's got that vibe of like um, libertarianism. If there's a stance to be had, it kind of leans that way in the theme. You can definitely tell you were writing that during the pandemic and dealing with that bullshit.
Yeah.
What's the theme of this latest album, or the EP rather?
It's a continuation. It's like, I mean, in this day and age that we're all kind of suffering through right now, it's hard to write about anything else. I feel like we're in some sort of book of Revelation, end times um, kind of era, and it's hard to write about anything else. It's especially when there's so much that I think is obvious to me that seems to not be obvious to a lot of other people. So I feel like I'm not only writing about what I see and I feel is important, but also just trying to like spread a message of some kind, doing my part in that.
So what would you say pushed you to start putting that in your songs? Because it wasn't always like that, it wasn't along the way. You didn't sort of always have that vibe. You weren't Rage Against the Machine back in the 90s. What sort of pushed you in that direction of incorporating that into your music?
Well, I mean, I would say our original album. I mean, I wrote that record when I was a teenager.
Sure.
Um, that record came out when I had turned. I think I was 21 by 2 months. So I was
Oof.
writing that record when I was 18, 19, and 20,
Right.
and it had a very like rebellious teenage kind of um, slightly immature vibe to it lyrically, and it was where I was at the time, but obviously that changes. You grow, you evolve, and I guess my writing has just evolved with that. And I, at a certain point in time, I'd say just after 2010, maybe
Okay.
I started just really deep diving into the way the world really works, the way the power structure is really set up, who's really pulling the strings, and when you start kind of dedicating enough time to those subject matters, you realize what a crock of shit you've been sold from the time you're a kid. You're just told lie after lie after lie in an attempt to control your thought process and what you grow into. And I couldn't help once I started learning more about those subject matters to to incorporate that into my lyrics, you know. And that was definitely a good 10 plus years ago. I'd say all the records I've released since 2012 on started kind of diverting in that direction lyrically.
Do you think your fan base like shifted with you, or did you start to pick up like a maybe a new type of person listening? Like, hey, I really identify with what he has to say here. Like, did you see a drastic shift at all, or no?
I Not a drastic shift. I would say that there's some of each of those scenarios that you just
Okay,
mentioned, and it's just been a kind of slow roll evolution, you know.
right.
So we've picked up fans. I'm sure we've lost fans, you know. Um, and then there are fans that have stuck with us from the beginning that have evolved with us and are still feeling the songs I write now that are very different from the early songs.
Well, I mean, I could if I look back at the bands I listened to. So I graduated high school in 2002. So if I look back at the bands I was listening to at that time, there's a good chunk of them I'm not currently listening to, and not necessarily like, hey, I don't like that band. It's just life. You kind of grow differently, and I think what you said about evolving is interesting, and I'm curious. I'm curious if anybody has like really reacted negatively to you in person about the content of your music.
It's never in person.
Okay. All
It's
right.
never in person. And
What
you
do people say?
there are definitely opportunities because I am our merch person. So I go to the merch table after every set every night, and I sell to everybody that's interested in merch, you know.
Sure.
But the internet is where people get ballsy, and as you know, as you know
Yeah.
very well, I'm sure. So the internet is where I hear from people that may be unhappy about the direction we've gone or something that I may have said or whatever. But you can't, you know how it goes. You can't worry about those people. Those people are going to exist regardless of what you do. You can't please everybody. There's going to be people that are irritated by your next step, and you just got to be you and chug along. You know.
I think that's honestly really solid advice. I think a lot of people would do well to stop listening to folks on the internet.
Yeah,
Uh,
I mean, if you try to just please everybody, you're gonna fail, and you're gonna end up not being yourself anymore.
yeah, you're gonna be real angry. I've been through that evolution myself where I I still deal with, mean comments and stupid comments and all that kind of stuff all the time.
Right.
And I can't imagine that on a scale like you must deal with it. So I said at the top of the show, I said you're a gun guy, and I think a lot of people in the audience don't necessarily, when you think of quote unquote famous people, it's quite rare these days for anybody to talk about firearms, let alone actually be an enthusiast like you are. And I'm curious, what is your like go-to gun right now?
Well, I've been really digging the Sig P365 modular aspect,
Okay, all right.
and right now I'm carrying a standard piece P365 slide on an XL grip from Gray Guns
Oof,
with
that's
a
nice. Gray
mag.
Guns makes great stuff.
What's that?
I said Gray Guns makes great stuff.
They do. Yeah, I dig their grip modules, and then I have a mag guts kit in that, so that the capacity is 14 um, in the standard XL grip. So
You
it's
can't be
14.
mad about that. So it's what, the 12 rounder that can take 14? Is that the idea?
Yep. You know mag guts, right?
Yeah,
The
yeah, yeah.
the the magazine kits. It adds, like, I mean, maybe a quarter inch, if that, to the standard flush 12 round mag, and then it adds 2 rounds in the process.
Like, you can't be mad about having 14 rounds in a package that small.
Right, and it's so comfortable, and then I'm carrying it in a hidden hybrid holster, so it's like
Yep, I
super
know those
comfy on
guys.
the back and Kydex on the front, and it's working out pretty well. But I'm constantly like shifting and changing things too, you know.
Yeah, we've talked about several things that you've owned over the last few months or so. Um, One of the things I know you got into was you've got a Canic too, right?
Yeah, I got that Canik Mete MC9. Um,
I can't call it a Mete. I have to call it the meat. I can't. It has to be the meat gun every time. I'm sorry.
the
It
meat
has,
gun,
yeah, the meat gun.
that's better,
So
definitely.
do you like the MC9 as like a, I guess that would be a 365 competitor. What do you think?
It would be. I like a lot about it, but I hit you up actually asking what the hell was going on because I I took it to the range and I was shooting it and probably like once through each mag, I would pull the trigger and the gun would go click, but no boom.
That's not
And
great. That's not great.
yeah, no, and obviously you want to trust the weapon to carry it. So I'd take the round out and the round wasn't struck, and I wasn't really sure what was going on. But then I did a little internet digging and noticed that a lot of people were complaining about the slide not going fully back into battery
Mm,
every time. And I took it to the range again and was actually checking it after each shot. And sure enough, the slide would stop like, I mean, just a little bit out of battery, but just
that's all
enough
it takes.
that it would allow the trigger pull and the firing pin would go. It just wouldn't reach the round. And Canik sent me um, a new spring,
Okay.
recoil spring, and that helped a little bit. It helped with the frequency of the issue, but it still would happen.
That
But
sucks.
what I found was if you use heavier ammo plus P ammo, it doesn't happen at all. It's just with the 115 grain range ammo. So you know it's cool, but I do when you have a gun that doesn't go bang every time, it's just hard to throw it into your rotation.
Oh yeah. I mean, we've tested many, many, many guns that had some variation of that issue. I remember one, and I'm not going to name them, but we had a company where the first gun, I've now had five from one company. The full size grip versions of this gun worked fine, but the like sort of Glock 19 size, we can just never get it to work right in some way, shape, or form. And the very first time we took it out, every single round wouldn't go back into battery, and we had to whack it on the back of the slide to get it to go home to fire again. So
Yeah.
I totally understand. What's some of the other stuff that you've got? I don't know how big your collection is. What's some of the other stuff that you've got, or maybe that you want?
Well, I want everything,
All
but
right, that's fair.
but every time something new comes out, I'm like, ooh, I want that. But I've got a bunch of carry guns because I I started carrying and then I'd be like, oh, I love this gun except for this little aspect, and then I'd be like, I wonder if that gun's better, and I'd get that one. I'd be like, oh, I really like this one, but this little aspect, and the search for perfection begins. Um,
Good luck.
right, right. So, I mean, I've got a couple of Tauruses,
Okay,
the G3C and the GX4. I've
I
got
have
a
both of those. Yeah, they're good.
yeah that I mean that for budget pistols they work.
Yep.
And I've got a Hellcat, and I've got the Sig setup that I told you about, but I also have the Sig P365 XL.
Okay.
So, and I've got like a macro grip module, so I
Mhm.
can like switch up. That's what I like about the P365 is just the modularity. You can take all these parts and just lay them out and form whatever gun you want when you have enough different grip modules and the different slide options and the triggers, and it all just kind of, it's every day. Just build your preference. I dig that.
I think it's kind of cool that you can also, with these modular guns, tailor it to, what you're carrying, like what you're trying to do that day. So
Yeah.
if you're going somewhere and you're not worried about printing as much, you can have that full size grip. If you're trying to be a little bit more discreet and you want to hide it a little more, get that shorter one. And since you've got that mag with 14 rounds, I mean, bro, you're set.
Yep.
That's cool. Does that gray guns thing, did you get the trigger done as well? I know that's a big thing they do.
No, I haven't switched out the actual trigger in that, but if I did, I'd definitely look at gray guns because I
Sure.
like their products.
Yeah, I've actually never, I probably want, I shot a million things, but I don't recall ever like trying it at length, but I've only ever heard really, really good things. So at what point did you decide, like, where were you, you know, you were of age when your first album blew up? Like, where along the line did you say, I'm going to start carrying every day and protect myself, especially when you're out touring and stuff? Like, how does that all work? When did you start carrying and that sort of thing?
Well, my grandfather was like basically John Wayne, and like
Okay. All right.
he got me into guns at a very young age. I'd sit and watch westerns with him,
Come over
and
here, old Barrel Grum.
yeah, and
Sorry, that's a shitty impression.
but he taught me from a very young age. Here's where the guns are. Don't touch them. I'll take you shooting when you get old enough. And then he did. He would take me shooting when I was a kid, and he was always had a pocket knife on him. I always carried a pocket knife from the time I was a little kid because of him. And but living in California, you're very limited when it comes to the Second Amendment, right? They are a Nazi state
So true.
that ignores the Second Amendment completely and somehow gets away with it. And so I always had a couple guns, but in California, it's just so strict. I just never really dove into it. Um, then I moved to Arkansas in 2013, and I have a good friend that lives in Little Rock, and he's like, you gotta get your concealed carry now, dude. And I was like, what do you mean? And he broke it down, the process and your rights here. And I was just like, oh, this is something I'm gonna definitely do because we tour, we go to the worst parts of each town and
Gosh,
deal with what's that?
I said I can't imagine the shitholes that you've been to.
Oh yeah, yeah. I mean, and we're carrying, we're in a nice RV. We're carrying a lot of expensive equipment. We've got cash, on us in various amounts at various times, and it's just good to have protection. I mean, I've been attacked before by promoters. We when you talk about 20
Wait,
years of
really?
touring, huh?
You've been attacked?
Oh yeah, yeah. I mean, we've had crackheads walk up on our vehicle. I've been literally attacked by the promoter of the venue.
What the hell
Um,
happened there? You got to tell me that story. You got to tell me the promoter attacking you.
all right, so we were playing a show in Des Moines, Iowa. It was us and Soil on
Okay.
tour
Yeah, yeah,
on,
yeah.
on tour together, and we were sharing a bus. And in between Soil set and our set, we were down in this like dungeony kind of underground green room waiting to play, and our crew guy comes down the steps. He goes, guys, we're not playing tonight. We gotta leave now.
Oh, yeah.
And I was
So
like,
you're like, wait, what the hell is happening?
yeah. I was like you know we had no inclination that anything was going wrong. We thought it was just another show, but apparently up there, the huge bald-headed, tattooed, drunken, coked out guy that was the promoter for the show had jumped up on stage during our set changeover and grabbed the mic and just started being completely obnoxious and crazy. And then he went and threw a punch at my guitar tech on stage.
Oh boy.
And you got to understand too, like all the security that night are all his boys too, you know. So it it could spill over into a much bigger event if this guy is going to be this belligerent. So
Yeah, that could be a problem.
yeah, yeah. So we start going up the stairs, and we're gonna go into this back alley and head to our bus and just reassess. When we get to the top of the stairs, the guy's literally there, and he looks at me. And he's like, "You," and he just starts charging me. And the drummer from one of the opening bands jumps in between and bear hugs the guy and turns and looks at me. He's like, "Run, dude!" And and so we take off running up. We go out the side door and go up this alley, and he breaks away from the drummer, and he's chasing us. And it was like a movie scene, you know, where you get to the bus door and you open it, and the last guy gets in the bus and slams the door right as the bad guy's hand is coming for the knob, you know.
Oh my gosh.
So the door slams and he locks it, and the guy's out there on the side of the street just screaming and punching our tour bus windows. And he actually like spider webbed a couple of the windows. And then he hauled off and like socked somebody just walking up the street. And then the cops arrived and took him off, and that was the end of that. But you know, 20 years worth of stories like that, and you want to be able to protect yourself, you know. And
I'd say.
and so I found out that I could get my concealed carry here, and that it's also, you know, the reciprocity map that shows what other states honor your concealed carry. Arkansas has a really great reciprocity map.
I was
So
gonna
I
say
can,
I wasn't sure about Arkansas. Are they a constitutional carry state now?
yep, oh yeah,
Okay.
been constitutional carry for, I don't know, definitely over 5 years, probably like 6 7 years ish now.
Wow.
And you know, they had always honored everybody else's concealed carries, so you know, there's a lot of mutual love going on there. So you know, now we roll as a small crew, but at least I get to carry and have a, you know, some sort of leveling device to level the
Sure.
playing field.
Yeah, a force equalizer.
Exactly.
Do you actually avoid areas? So I know you've got to balance like, hey, I have fans in communist territory. Do you ever like avoid a show in say like New York City because you can't legally carry? I'm not gonna implicate that you do carry illegally, but what do you think about that?
Yeah, we actually don't go to New York, New Jersey, Maryland, or above. And we also don't go to Washington, Oregon, or California. And the reason is this, because um, just entering those states with the firearm in the vehicle, even if I break it down, take it apart, put it in lock boxes, and separate it from the ammo, and all the hoops that you have to jump through in those states. Um, some of those states are so strict that if I just enter the state to play a show and I have this gun broken apart and locked up, I could still get a felony gun charge. Um, and I'm just not willing to risk that. And I'm also not willing to risk going out and doing a whole month-long tour all over the US without any firearm to defend myself, just to enter New York and do a show in New York. You know, it's just not worth it. And so we made the decision to cut those states out probably 2019.
Okay. So it wasn't even, I know a lot of people sort of had their eyes opened wide with the way the pandemic was handled in all these states. So you were, before that, you were like, F no, I'm not doing this. These guys can eat a dick. I'm not giving them any of our money.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, the other thing too. I mean, you know, California, Oregon, Washington, New York, New Jersey. These aren't the best rock states anyway. You know, it's like New York has the most people in it, but we jump through all those hoops to get there. You know, pay all those tolls, deal with all that nightmare, that the headache of parking. Um,
And it is for anybody that's listening, like in the middle of the country, if you've never been to New York City, don't go. It is imagine somebody dropped a box of marbles and you are expected to stand there and also park a car while you're standing on these marbles. Like, it's impossible to do anything in a crowded space like that, especially where venues might be.
Dude, it's and a lot of the venues in New York, you know, you'll pull up and illegally double park your vehicle
Yep.
just to dump your gear, but then they'll just be like, yeah, we don't have parking for you. You know, you might be able to find parking like 5 blocks away if you go up
You
this
might be
street.
able to. I love that. You might.
And so, you know, if the guarantees were like, if what we got paid to play those cities were elevated, were way higher than everywhere else, maybe you'd think about still going there and dealing with all of the negative aspects of the travel and the headache and the work. Um, but when the guarantees are similar to everywhere else, and there's less people there because rock is not a popular happening genre of music these days, it just makes it easy to be like, we're not going to go there. You know?
Sure. What is you said they're not a rock state. Like, what's your like top three? Like, where do you love to go and play?
I mean, I couldn't pick just specific states as much as just territories. You know, the South and the Midwest are just better for rock music, and I guess they have been for a long time. But um, that's just that problem's gotten worse and worse. If you
Sure.
ask me, you know, the West Coast and the Northeast, they're very hip in their own mind, and they're always into whatever the fuck the kids listen to these days, you know.
Dude, I regularly shit on mumble rap on the news, and I actually met Twista in person. I talked to him. Do you know who Twista is?
I've heard the name.
So Twista is a multi-platinum rapper. He's been rapping for probably longer than you've been in the music industry. He's been around for a very long time, and he's a big gun guy as well. He's out of Chicago.
Oh, okay.
And I was like, I asked him when I sat down and talked to him, and I was like, dude, what the fuck is going on with mumble rap? Like, that shit's not even words. Like, like being lyrically talented used to be a mountain that you could stand on, and that's just gone because like, what is this? This is not good.
Well, and how many times can you rhyme "hey" with "hey"? I mean, it's. I'm sorry, but like you said, there used to be a level of skill involved, and now,
I mean, there still is with some of them, you know,
yeah,
like
yeah,
guys like Kendrick Lamar, and I personally really enjoy Lil Dicky. Like, I think they're talented lyrically,
right.
but like the shit that's being played on the radio is where did that come from?
Dude, absolutely. There have been some songs that I've heard one way or another over the last whole bunch of years. I'm just like, it's mind blowing to me that this is successful music. You know,
Right.
this is popular culture. It's just crazy.
Have you been tempted along the way to sort of make stuff that you know will be like more radio friendly and more poppy and that sort of thing? Is that like a the carrot on the stick for you at all?
No, I mean, I've always just wanted to do what I do and hope that would catch people's ear and become successful. And if not, then whatever, I guess, you know.
Well, you're lucky it has.
Well, enough to just give me a career, but you know, obviously a much smaller career than so many artists out there, but
I
I'd
need
rather
to,
be
so,
I'd rather
so
be
really,
myself.
sure. I think the key here is that you need to start a mumble rap career.
I think you're right, dude. I think that's my next move.
What would your mumble rap name be?
Probably
Like
have
it's
to
gonna
start
be
with
Lil something, right?
right. I was gonna say it had to be Lil something. I mean, I'm not really sure.
I'm gonna let the audience out there respond and tell us what Sean's rap name, mumble rap name would be, because that that is some special shit right there. I can't imagine you like I'm just it's just making me internally giggle at how absurd that would be. So are you know, you've been out there playing with countless different bands. Are there a lot of other bands that not necessarily politically aligned, but like morally align with the idea of protecting oneself and being independent in the same way that you are? Would you Are there a lot of other folks like you?
There are certainly other folks like me and like us, but it's just the political climate, has people afraid to speak out, and it's a shame because obviously if they all spoke out, then it'd just be over. But um, everyone's afraid of being canceled, and or dealing with the headaches of the little internet trolls that would come at you for saying this or saying that, and it's just a damn shame. But I mean, there are definitely artists out there that carry. There are definitely plenty of conservative or libertarian minded artists, and they just have to be silent on the issues.
You know, it's a real shame. I mean, we see that a lot with Hollywood. You know, there's very few actors that have come out as, you know, it's funny that you have to say it like that as well. They've sort of come out of the conservative closet, so to speak.
Right, right. It's like
It's
something to be hot, to be hidden, and shameful. It's like it's ridiculous.
yeah, it is, and you know, you think of like is it Chris Pratt? Yeah, he's done a lot of like hunting and this and that. And I was listening to the Meat Eater podcast with Steve Ranella, and he was talking with a football player that dealt with the backlash of going hunting and showing this picture of this absolutely massive mountain lion that was sort of a pest and killing, you know, game and people's pets and things like that. He took care of it, and you know, that solving that problem for people was not the issue. The issue was that they kind of surprised he kind of surprised his audience, so to speak. Do
Right.
you feel like that's something that would benefit people if, like, you know, there was just this effort for celebrities and folks with, you know, Hollywood connections and music careers and all that? Do you think it would be beneficial for them to just like, hey, this is who I am. I'm tired of hiding behind this fear of cancellation? Do you think that'd be a good thing?
I don't know. I mean, that th- you know, there are definitely career enders when it comes to statements these days and things said. Um, but I think we need more to just step up and get the balls and do it anyway, um, and just risk it. Especially just as an example, there are some really huge bands um, that feel the way we feel about a lot of these issues, but don't say anything whatsoever when they could, because they're so big that they're uncancelable. I mean, they have enough money in the bank that they can live forever. So, you know, maybe you won't make as much money in the future, maybe, but you're doing the right thing, and you're helping mold society for the better moving forward.
I
Um,
I wonder what holds them back, like if it's monetary or just fear. You know, fear holds a lot of people back, myself included. I wonder what holds people back from just being themselves with their audience, like their entire selves. What do you think?
I think it's definitely money and status driven. The
Mhm.
fear of losing not only the dollars moving forward, but the status in people's, in pop culture and in people's minds. Because if all of a sudden you're being shamed and shunned, um, that's definitely an ego hit that you have to be willing to take.
I
And
agree.
I think that a lot of these guys are propped up by there's money, but there's also ego, and the two are both big.
Yeah, I don't know, I've never been in that position, so I don't know what I would do. Uh, but I do know that that has to be difficult. It has to be difficult. Was it a difficult thing for you to, uh, when you started putting that in your music? You said it was kind of this natural transition of you evolving. Was there anybody like on the music industry side that was like, "Hey, dude, you probably shouldn't do this"?
By the lyrical content evolving.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Sort of,
No,
you
no.
know,
By then, I had
giving everybody the middle finger.
pretty much. We had broken free enough, that it was we were already in do your own thing kind of territory. Um, which, like I said, it's it's tough if you're surrounded by this big label and this management firm, and you've got lawyers and business account managers and all these people that are influential in your career in a scenario like that. If you come out and say some shit that causes all this other shit to start swirling, you're going to be getting calls from all of them. And it's a lot. It's a lot to deal with. Whereas with us, it's like I said, it's literally just me. And
So you
I,
don't get a phone call from yourself, is what you're saying.
I don't call myself when I say something that might irritate a fan somewhere. It's just I get to do what I want to do, and um, deal with the repercussions myself as I'm running my own social media.
I like it. I think that's wonderful, man. And I definitely encourage people. What was the name of the EP one more time?
The loss of everything.
The Loss of Everything. Y'all need to go download that. Um, before we roll, of course, support our sponsors, guys. But we've got one more question. But in the meantime, blackoutcoffee.com/TGC and vertex.com and use the code TGC. I'm going to plug them, and then I'm going to ask Sean. Top 3 guns, money is no issue. What would you get?
Oh damn!
Yeah, yeah.
I'd probably get a really tricked out CZ Shadow.
Okay,
Um,
I like that.
I would probably get one of those incredible um, Cabot 1911 customs that they do.
Ooh, oh man, they're so good. They're
Right?
so good. They're made here in Pennsylvania, by the way, and they are so good.
Yeah. I mean, I've never even held one, but I follow them online, and
You don't want to hold one because then you'll have to have one.
right, right. They just look so just top notch in every way, and I'm sure they are. I don't know even what price tags go on those, but it's got to be in the tens of thousands, right?
Depending on the model, they have some that are sub 10,000, but you really want to get into the real fancy ones. Yeah, they're ultra pricey. So a CZ Shadow and a custom version of that, the Cabot 1911, some custom version of that. What else? Any
Yeah.
long guns? Maybe no, maybe all handguns. What do you think?
No, no. I'd probably just. I mean, if you could just give me an unlimited budget to go build an AR, that'd probably be my third.
Would you go for 5.56 or would you go for some other cartridge?
I'd probably do 5.56.
I think it says a lot about how simple you are as a man when you're like, you know what, I'm going with the one that works. I'm not messing with this other bullshit.
Well, dude, I mean, I try to keep my calibers down to a minimum because my safe is full. My wife won't let me get another one. And,
this is a rock star saying that. I love it. I love it. My wife won't let me get another. I love that.
And so I try to keep only 9mm 5.56, 12 gauge, and 380. Those are the and 22. So
that's a good mix.
I'm trying to just, I don't want anything unless I can get like a 50 cal and have like one of those giant safes that you could like, it's like another room, then maybe that.
I think we need to see about getting you a vault room in your house. That's what we need.
If you can make that happen, I would be appreciative of that.
I don't know if I could make a room happen, but I could certainly this racking system, that's 100%. We can make that work.
That's pretty cool racking system right there.
Yeah, Lockdown has been incredible. I haven't really talked about them much on the podcast yet, but Lockdown set me up with this huge scenario. And you can't, like, when I'm sitting here, if I go to the wide shot for the video, like, there's a lot more than what you can see in this shot, which is awesome. I'm very, very fortunate. And yours is celebratory records and all that other, like, I would argue that yours is cooler than mine.
I would argue that yours is cooler than mine. Yeah. I'll trade.
No, we're not going to trade. We're not going to trade. We're not.
See?
Sean, thank you for being here and participating in the TGC podcast. Is there anything you want to say before we go?
No, man. Just thanks for having me, and thank you for coming on my podcast here.
Oh, we didn't even talk about that. We didn't even talk. All right, tell everybody the name of the podcast and where to find it.
Well, I co-host the Anthony Rogers Show, which is a friend of mine that is a comedian, and we do a show every Tuesday night at 8:30. And you came on.
I did.
In the infantile stages of the show, and we were having audio issues. So I think a repeat of that's going to be necessary.
I would say by the time this comes out, that will have already happened. But please go back and watch it. Check it out Tuesday evenings. Where do you broadcast this?
YouTube and Facebook.
Okay.
And
so
then
just search
afterwards,
the Anthony Rogers Show.
Yeah, the Anthony Rogers Show. And then after that, it obviously goes out to all the Spotify's of the world and all those other, digital streaming platforms.
Well, I can't wait to do it again. And if you're not on tour the next time I come through Arkansas, we are definitely going to fucking hang out.
Absolutely. And likewise, coming through PA, if we're coming through and you're in town, let's get together.
Absolutely, brother. Thanks again. And as always, guys, thanks for listening, watching, etc. We'll see you all soon.